Today's reading comes from John's Gospel. It's John chapter 12, verses 1 to 7. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus went to Bethany, the home of Lazarus, the man he had raised from death. They prepared a dinner for him there, which Martha helped to serve. Lazarus was one of those who were sitting at the table with Jesus. Then Mary took 1/2 litre of a very expensive perfume made of pure nard, poured it on Jesus' feet, and wiped them with her hair. The sweet smell of the perfume filled the whole house. One of Jesus' disciples, Judas Iscariot, the one who was going to betray him, said, "Why wasn't this perfume sold for 300 silver coins and the money given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. He carried the money bag and would help himself from it. But Jesus said, "Leave her alone. Let her keep what she has for the day of my burial. You will always have poor people with you, but you will not always have me." Now, the context of our reading, as is fairly obvious, is that this comes pretty much straight after Jesus had raised Lazarus back to life. That wonderful story in John's Gospel of Martha and Mary, and the dialogue that Jesus has with both of them, and the raising of Lazarus, and the fact that after Lazarus is raised to life, so many people came to Jesus, so many people made such a lot of noise about what had happened there, quite understandably, that the religious authorities were tipped over into not only being annoyed and threatened and angry with Jesus, but actually felt he really did have to go, because this was just too much, too incontrovertible, too dangerous, too revolutionary, that he should be able to raise somebody who was dead back to life. John's reading here that we've just had, of course, is full of symbolism. Mary and Martha and Lazarus are all there having dinner with him. It's Martha who's helping to serve, just as it was in the earlier story, where Martha is the one who is busy, Mary the one who is perhaps more in tune with what Jesus is saying, perhaps somebody who knows. But in the earlier conversation that Jesus has with Mary and Martha, he says to Martha, "I am the resurrection and the life." And Mary is the one who comes out after that. She falls at Jesus' feet, and her cry, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died," sounds more like a statement of lament rather than an accusation that perhaps Martha was. The symbolism is evident in what happens, because Mary takes this extraordinarily expensive perfume, so very expensive compared to the working wages of the people at the time. She pours it on Jesus' feet, which is extraordinary, of course, because people would normally take such perfume and anoint someone's head with it, where it could be smelled. But no, she goes to his feet, which seems a very strong visual picture of the preparation for Jesus' death, because that's where people would start when they're preparing a body for burial. More than that, she unties her hair, something that no Jewish woman would do in that time, except in the presence of her husband, or when she's going to get clean. So, just not done in public. So her hair is untied, she wipes his feet, and the wonderful smell of the perfume fills the whole house. So a beautiful act of love and dedication is done. It's extravagant beyond words in terms of the monetary value and in terms of the self-declaration that Mary makes. She is preparing Jesus' body for death, in the sure and certain knowledge that he will rise again, as he has told people he will. And it is one of total and utter abandonment and servitude and love and devotion. And so, continuing John's theme of seeing and believing, I suppose, here we have an act of beauty and glory which is perceived, at least by Jesus, as something, Judas rather, sorry, as something extravagant and unnecessary. And I suppose it continues the dialogue that we have just had with the religious leaders. Somebody is raised to life, their biggest concern is that that makes Jesus more popular. Just as the healings tend to leave people confused and threatened rather than full of joy and praise and wonder and glory for what Jesus has been able to do. We hear that Judas says the thing that perhaps many people would say in such a situation: what a dreadful waste, couldn't we have done something better for more people like this? And there is that wonderful word in some of our translations, at least, where he says he carried the money bag. That word carried is actually very much like our word lifted. And in our language, of course, lifted means to steal. Someone goes and they lift something, they steal it. And so it's not that Judas carried the money bag around, he often picked it up and helped himself to it. It wasn't that he owned it or was entrusted with it, he just helped himself to the money. But Jesus says, leave her alone. Let her keep what she has done for the day of my burial, further echoing that point that Mary is anointing Jesus' feet as preparation for his death. You will always have the poor people with you, which is true. There will always be around those who follow Jesus, those who are in need, if not the people themselves. There will always be people who need help from those whose hearts have been warmed by the risen Spirit of Jesus. There will always be need. But you will not always have me. You will not always have me. And that's why her act of devotion is so true. But it's not bound in that particular time. It's an act of devotion which is called from all people, and in fact goes to the heart of what motivates us. Because yes, there will always be poor people. Yes, there will always be suffering people. Yes, there will always be people who need the help of other individuals. But will we respond? Will we have that selfless, extravagant outpouring that Mary so beautifully displayed, which showed no care for herself, nor for monetary wealth, or for any other kind of thing, pure outpouring of love in response to the presence of Jesus. And we, who understand in our hearts that the God who made the universe loves each and every one of us, has that same presence, is in the presence of God. And so what is our response going to be to our brothers and sisters in need? One of extravagant love. One that calls for selfless abandonment. One that calls to give everything. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all, are the words of the song that we sing around Easter time. Leave her alone, he says. You will not always have me. When we are in the presence of God, which as Christian people we always are, then our response should always be one of adoration and love. For Mary is a person in the story here who is fueled to do God's work after this encounter. She is the one who is so totally and utterly assured of who Jesus is, and so totally and utterly filled with joy and devotion and love. Her words, her actions are going to be the ones that bless people, not somebody like Judas who sits weighing up the situation, making decisions about who is or who isn't included, deciding how to be kind and loving, rather than simply being kind and loving. Always, it is a relationship that we talk about. Always, it is about being rather than deciding and logicking, because our experience of God is one that does warm our hearts and drives all our words and actions, because of the firm foundation that we know we are loved by God, and nothing else is ever worth that.